Today I'm going to talk about how to identify trees in winter. So obviously a lot of trees keep their leaves in winter, such as this cedar here behind me. It's an evergreen tree, but a lot of trees also drop their leaves in autumn and then they are completely bare in winter. But there are actually quite a lot of clues that you can look at that can help you to identify and find out which tree it is. You can look at the bark of a tree. Some have really lovely colored, interesting bark. You can look at the buds and their position and their shape. You can also look at flowers, because actually some trees are flowering in winter. And in some cases you can also look at the overall shape and the silhouette of the tree. So here we have a little display that's a good example for identifying trees and shrubs in winter by their bark. So this is something that most people probably know. It's a silver birch and it has this beautiful white bark that really stands out in winter. And planted around the silver birches we have horners, which is a dogwood, which is a shrub but can also be a small tree if you let it grow. We prune them annually almost to take some stems out, because the young stems are colorful and a really bright orange and yellowish, and it really looks fantastic with the white of the birch. And in fact it's not a tree, but behind me here, that's a lovely little evergreen shrub called sarcococca, and it's flowering right now. The flowers are small, but it has the most amazing scent as you walk past. This is a hazel, or Corylus avellana by botanical name, and it's a lovely thing to look at in winter because it's actually flowering. So a hazel has separate male and female flowers on the same plant, and you can see the catkins, which are the male flowers, and just next to them are really tiny female flowers which have a red tip. It always cheers me up a lot when I see the flowers in January. This behind me is our huge and fantastic copper beech. It's one thing to look for when you look at a beech tree and try to identify it, is that they grow really wide. So they make a really wide, massive crown. So this tree is, when it is in leaf in summer, quite often confused with another tree, with the hornbeam. There's one growing just over there. But if you look at those two trees, the beech and the hornbeam, in winter, you can actually see the difference quite easily, because the buds are quite different. The beech has quite long and pointy buds that are standing away from the stem at an angle, and the ones of the hornbeam are much smaller and growing closer to the main stem. They are sort of quite flat against the stem. So both of the trees behind me either side are conifers. This one here is a taxodium, and the unusual thing about this is that it actually drops its needles in winter. So if you see a tree with needles lying underneath, it's most likely a taxodium or another couple of options of conifers that drop their leaves in winter. Most other conifers are evergreen, and you can see an example just there in the back, which is an Atlantic cedar, which has a lovely blue hue to its needles, and also it has these fantastic spreading wide branches that are sort of horizontal to the ground, and it just looks fantastic at any time of year. This is another deciduous conifer we have on site, and it has the fantastic and complicated name Metasequoia glyptostroboides, or dawn redwood. It was thought to be extinct, and there were only fossil records of it, and then someone found it in China in 1941, found living trees, and it's quite a rare tree, but it's in gardens, actually quite in parks and gardens, quite frequently planted. It's a beautiful tree with a sort of conical shape, grows really tall. It makes these lovely long tassels in winter, which are really cool to look at. And there's also on this one here a cone as well. I'm standing in front of one of my favorite trees, which is an alder just here behind me. And it's a fantastic tree to look at this time of year. Because you would think that there's nothing much going on in January, but this is actually just coming into flower. You can see the lovely catkins that are on there. So the lovely catkins here have just come out. They are still closed, but they will be opening soon. And at the same time, you can see these dark, bobbly fruit from last year, and both of these at the same time on the tree just make it look really fantastic in winter. Okay, so this is a very old oak just behind me here. It has a very ragged look to it, almost as if it has been turned upside down, and the roots are sticking out at the top. Oaks can grow very old, and often they drop branches here and there over the years, and then they get this really interesting look. We have a lot of oaks on site. Not all look like this. Many are more rounded and balanced. An oak is fairly easy to identify by its buds in winter. You can see the buds are bunched up here at the top. We've got clusters of buds, and that's how to identify an oak. This tree here behind me might be quite a challenging one to identify in winter, but you can narrow it down at least by looking at the buds, which are paired or opposite, which means that a pair of buds is coming out on both sides in the same place, as opposed to alternate, where they come out one here, one there, one there. So this is a way to identify maples and some other trees. A really iconic tree at the Horniman is the horse chestnut, which are growing on the avenue right behind me. All the tall trees behind me you can see are horse chestnuts. And in spring they will look absolutely spectacular with their white flowers. In winter they are a fairly easy to identify tree because they have really fat and sticky buds. They will actually, as you know, we move into February and March, get even fatter and stickier. So if you can get close up to horse chestnut, you will be able to really easily identify it by its buds.